Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Julia Becker and I'm the Content Marketing and Account Manager for FreightWaves. We're happy to present today's webinar in partnership with Locomation. To capitalize on the huge wave of economic prosperity coming to the supply chain from autonomous trucks requires implementing an end-to-end service that guarantees flawless planning and operations from day one. Today, you'll be hearing how shippers and carriers can prepare their supply chains for fully autonomous trucks in 2021 and beyond. I'll be joined by Locomation's Chetan Madechli, CEO and co-founder, Tom Crosweg, Vice President of Business Development and Strategy, and Glenn Spangenberg, Chief Commercial Officer. We'll also have a live Q&A with both speakers following the discussion. Before we get started, I'd like to cover just a couple of housekeeping items. If you have any issues during the webinar, please feel free to reach out to our team via the audience chat function in your webinar console, and someone will be in touch to assist you. If you have any questions you'd like to ask our presenters, you may enter those at any point during the presentation using the Q&A box also in your console. Following our speaker presentation, we'll address as many questions as time allows for. We'll also be sending you a link to this recording of the webinar tomorrow if you'd like to view it on demand or share it with your colleagues. At this point, I will turn it over to Chetan and our partners at Locomation to kick off today's discussion.
Thank you so much, Julia. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. We are glad to be here with you today with the FreightWaves audience to introduce Locomation.
Of course, you're quite welcome, Chetan. And I just want to be clear, we know names are very important. I am pronouncing your name, Chetan, correctly.
Yes, that's extremely correct. Thank you so much for being very, very thoughtful. That makes for a warm introduction indeed. And on that similar note, our name is a clever blend of two words, locomotion and automation. And if you recall, the A in Locomation is stylized to resemble the autonomous road ahead. And yes, it is pronounced Locomation. And our website is locomation.ai. So today I will introduce my team and myself further in just a minute to share more about Locomation. But first, for those who are familiar with Pittsburgh, you will recognize the 9th Street Bridge and the world-famous Pittsburgh Pirates Stadium behind me. What we hope you will also begin recognizing alongside these iconic Pittsburgh landmarks soon, moving forward, is the Locomation autonomous truck, also sitting behind me, with this one being our 3rd generation.
Those trucks look really impressive. Again, welcome, Chetan. The show is yours.
Thank you so much, Julia. Locomation is really enjoying our relationship with FreightWaves, in large part because of you. Thank you so much again. In fact, we've been airing this next commercial clip on various FreightWaves venues, so check it out. Short but sweet, but there is a lot to unpack there. You can watch it again next time with popcorn if you want at locomation.ai on our YouTube channel. A moment ago, I said we are going to introduce Locomation, so let's get started, shall we? For the next 50 minutes or so, my team and I will take you behind the scenes at Locomation to show you what we've been up to, but not only that, what we've been up to these last 3 years as a company. On the next slide, we will also share a collage of my team's combined past work on land autonomy and robotics projects. Since the rest of our team couldn't be here with us, they wanted you to see at least their babies. Please allow me to continue the introductions with two of my leaders. Glenn Spangenberg, Chief Commercial Officer.
Hello all.
Glenn has more than 4 decades of experience in the trucking industry, introducing or advancing the deployment of new technologies for ComData, Qualcomm, Trimble, where he conceptualized and introduced the infamous mirrorless truck concept, and MacroPoint. And Tom Crosswake, Vice President of Strategy and Business Development.
Hello, everyone.
Tom has more than 3 decades of hands-on experience engineering some of the nation's most profitable freight transportation network systems for the likes of PepsiCo and Ryder Dedicated Logistics. Thank you, too, for joining me, and not just for this webinar in general. I'm Çetin Meriçli, co-founder and CEO of Locomation. I've spent my entire life studying robotics and inventing the future of autonomous systems, including understanding how machines and humans interact. I received my first computer when I was 11, and I never looked back. Since then, I've been making autonomous things with a great group of folks, nearly for two and some decades. Following the introductions, we will now cover some excellent content about the market opportunities that we believe this our approach presents. And we will also be polling the audience near the start and the end, mostly for fun, so be ready to respond. All right, let's rock and roll. All right, now since my co-founders could not be here today, they sent their warm regards and they sent their offspring, their babies, to show off a little bit, if you will. It's very impressive and very beautiful indeed. And remember that this is just a handful of small set of projects that myself and my team have done in the past. It's as real as these autonomous machines and the capabilities of our company leaders bring to bear at Locomation is very, very impressive. And it's not just about building the systems. The textbook you see on the right was written by our very own chief scientist, Dr. Al Kelly. It is used at all levels of academic study to this day. And at one point or another, everyone in the AV space who studied academically about robotic systems and the math behind them used this book to learn. We are very, very proud of him, and very rightfully so. This is quite a bit accomplishment. All combined, our co-founders, 5 co-founders, have over 100 years of direct experience in building and deploying AVs, and have also published more than 200 publications in this field. Locomation represents a unique and timely intersection of key differentiators and significant competitive advantages. Decidedly, we have a compelling near-term value proposition, commercially validated, and on path to hit the road in 2022. Commercial validation comes in the form of more than 2,100 autonomous truck systems signed and under contract with Wilson Logistics and PGT Trucking. Under those agreements and others in the works, we are building autonomous truck upfit kits that our strategic partner Rush Enterprises will upfit on our customers' new trucks as they move through the post-dealer installation process. And then the Locomation-equipped finished trucks are transported to the end customer to implement in their autonomous truck operation. Glenn will share more about these 2 agreements shortly. In 3 very fast years, or 12 quarters to be precise, we have filed over 100 new autonomous truck patent claims, introducing critical patents in what we believe will be the hottest first mover, the autonomous convoying, where the follower truck is fully autonomous on a mission to flawlessly follow the leader. And we'll unpack that topic next. Most importantly, we have a crisp, accelerated compounding path from first commercial application, which is the human-guided autonomous convoying, to fully solo driverless deployments at scale. I believe everyone on this webinar understands at least the basics of compound interest. It is one of the most powerful laws of economics you'll encounter in life. And in Locomation's case, we have the compounding advantage of thousands of systems going into service in a safe, human-guided, adult-supervised fashion that we call an autonomous relay convoy. We use the abbreviation ARC when we talk about autonomous relay convoys. The ARC system is the AV stack that goes on the truck, enabling it to function autonomously. If you hang around with us long enough, you will hear us talk about ARC-equipped trucks. Those are our autonomous relay convoy truck systems. They are the first in our AV portfolio, and I'll talk more about that shortly. Since the first clients we are serving are able to implement a turnkey autonomous truck solution for their shippers sooner, Locomotion expects these trucks to generate billions of miles in both shadow mode and autonomous follower mode very, very quickly.
And Chetan, if I might add, each ARC-equipped tractor deployed is expected to reduce CO2 by more than 60 metric tons annually. When we do the math with the estimated 60,000 trucks we expect at full deployment, that's more than 3 million less metric tons in the air annually. Hit our website at locomation.ai and in your contact form, put ESG or CO2 in the subject. You'll get what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's right. And if I could weigh in here too, Tom, in terms of carrier-shipper relations these days, besides dock delays and detention, which our relay planning and scheduling algorithms will accurately account for, the most pressing strategic imperative right now is that shippers and the carriers that rely on those carriers to transport their goods, that they're able to empirically quantify their reductions in compliance with what's known as Scope 1 and Scope 3 accounting and reporting requirements for CO2 emissions, and then take credit for those emissions reductions because these decisions are responsible for those reductions. And Locomotion will deliver this empirical evidence supporting your claims for Scope 1 and Scope 3 compliance. And it really, truly is powerful stuff. You can check it out at locomation.ai.
Thank you both. Now about the first two commercial contracts that everyone is asking about. Glenn, please elaborate.
Yeah, you bet. Totally delighted to cover this part. The number one request that we heard coming into this webinar was that we would share publicly some of the facts about the first two commercial contracts ever written for autonomous truck systems. They ask, are they real? The unequivocal answer to that question is yes. Without getting into any fundraising details, suffice it to say that these first two commercial contracts have successfully withstood a tremendous amount of both legal and financial scrutiny. What are they worth? Darrell Wilson, the CEO of Wilson Logistics, is planning to produce $560 million in autonomous truck services at a gross margin of 29%, with a pro forma gross profit of $162 million. And Greg Troyan, president of PGT Trucking, expects to produce $145 million in gross profit from $500 million in autonomous truck services at full deployment. Darrell and Greg both credit Locomotion's turnkey approach, where we're re-engineering their network for autonomy right now, worth millions in operating savings well before the first automated trucks actually show up. So if this is the very tip of the iceberg, Darrell Wilson and Greg Troyan are embarking on truly a relatively risk-free journey to discover just how much value there is in autonomous trucking. Conservative estimates indicate that our first deployment wave will produce an estimated $120 billion in autonomous truck services revenue and yield an estimated $36 billion in profits to the clients we serve. In the near term, we're taking meetings on our contact page at locomation.ai for fleets and shippers both who are interested in piloting in our DFW autonomy zone. We have 6 autonomous relay segments worth an estimated $8 billion in freight transportation revenue at a gross profit of $2.5 billion. Compare this $2.5 billion profit to the estimates of $400 million in profit from current trucking operations in the same zone, and it's easy to understand why this is a powerful proposition. So for more on how you might participate in these next pilots, please email me at explore@locomation.ai. Back to you, Chetan.
Mind-blowing stuff. Thank you so much, Glenn. And for sure, we know that FreightWaves has the most diverse audience in freight transportation, so I'm sure this will resonate strongly. So at this moment, I would like to take a minute to recognize two pioneers in the trucking industry, Darrell Wilson, President and CEO of Wilson Logistics, and Greg Troyan, President of PGT Trucking. These two leaders are the first movers in the world of autonomous trucking. So we really, really look forward to doing great, great things together. So thank you so much for being pioneers. Well, going back to the key highlights of Locomotion, another salient point that I would like to emphasize is our efficiency, because I know the FreightWaves audience also includes some investors. locomotion is arguably the most capital efficient AV operation in the world, having current being the first company to actually have tangible commercial traction in less than 3 years, with about $60 million total raised, but only a fraction of that money is actually deployed so far. So we are actually showing the world how efficient bringing autonomy to the real world in a safe and profitable manner can be. So if you want to find out more about that efficiency and our little secret sauce, also check locomotion.ai.
All right, excellent. Well, on that note, Chetan, let's take a look at our assessment of the market opportunity overall for autonomous trucks, and in particular, our self-driving truck model. Tom, take it away.
Yes, thank you, Glenn. The economics of trucking at scale are more powerful than Niagara Falls. Beginning with the fundamentals, it starts with the operating ratio, which is the operating cost divided by the revenue. For our purposes here, we'll be using data and information provided by the American Transportation Research Institute, otherwise known as ATRI or ATRI. Based on recent survey data, ATRI reports an average cost per mile of $1.71, which is made up of driver costs of 74 cents a mile, fuel costs of 41 cents a mile, and other operating costs, including equipment, insurance, and permits, at 57 cents a mile. Revenue is assumed at an average of 5%, which translates into $1.80 per mile. This would yield an industry average of a 95% operating ratio. One of my favorite trucking companies to watch is Heartland Express. Their current operating ratio is 85, which is best in class for the truckload industry at 10 basis points better than the industry average. We have evaluated the variables that attribute to this great OR and have identified length of haul and utilization factor as close to a full day's work as most important. Heartland Express averages around 450 miles per day per tractor. That equates to 112,000 miles per year. For over-the-road type operation, this is an ideal utilization. They also have very little purchase transportation, which means that they operate nearly 100% of their business with their own resources.
You know, Tom, I had the blessed good fortune to have known the Jardine family, especially Russ, the founder and a giant of a modern-day trucking leader during his way too short life, and his amazing wife, Ann. Today, Russ's son, Michael, impressively leads Heartland Express with impressive financial performance just all the way around. For our purpose here, though, the point is that the higher your asset utilization and the lower your cost per mile, the higher your gross profit, which gives you more to work with. Check out Heartland Express to see what that means on the bottom line in reality.
Agreed, Glenn. This understanding of utilization on a daily basis is one of the attributes we have built into our autonomous approach. Locomotion tractors will operate for 20 hours a day, yielding 1,000 to 1,200 miles per day. By operating at this level of utilization, we are able to reduce the equipment by 50% on the line hauls, yielding a 9-cent reduction in the cost per mile. With the convoy capability of one driver operating 2 tractors, you also reduce the labor required on the line haul by 50% for a savings of 37 cents per mile. The third savings category is in fuel expense, which can be lowered by 8% or 3 cents a mile as a result of convoy drafting. This would equate to a gross savings of 49 cents a mile. The expected cost of the system is 23 cents a mile, which means a net savings of 25 cents a mile and lowers the operating cost to $1.46 a mile. The main point we're making about why you should begin with autonomous convoys is that this cost savings would quadruple a carrier's profit. If you maintain a $1.80 average revenue per mile, your and the industry average operating ratio would be 81%, which is better than best in class. But this is really only half of our story, though. As locomotion's technology continues to develop, you will continue on a steady progression of economic savings. While the autonomous convoy and drone follower create dramatic operating ratio results, full autonomy can actually create a scenario of sub 65% operating ratios. Full autonomy will enable you to take out an additional 37 cents a mile of your line haul cost, with the equipment operating hub to hub with no drivers. The drafting effects from convoying are not material in this scenario, so the net additional savings from going to full autonomy is an additional 34 cents a mile, or a fully loaded operating cost of $1.12 a mile. This would equate to an operating ratio of 63%.
Wow. 120 billion in transportation revenue that under the current model produces somewhere between $6 and $12 billion in gross profit would now, under an autonomous relay scenario, produce between $36 and $54 billion on that same $120 billion in transportation revenue. That's a substantial improvement in the bottom line.
Yes, it is, Glenn. And when multiplied by the total revenue opportunity, for the ARC market, it equates to a $22 billion profit opportunity on 35% of the overall market, and a $120 billion profit opportunity when we get to full autonomy for the entire market.
All right, so it is time for our first audience poll question. So here's how it is. Are you prepared to operationalize autonomous trucks in your services portfolio? So how prepared are you? And think of it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being you're totally ready, 5 being you're on this webinar and checking it out, and then something in the middle. So totally ready, in the final phases of preparing to implement, actively developing a plan to implement, certain that you'll start but not sure where or how, or you're just beginning the journey. Go ahead and do the audience poll now. Totally ready, in the final phases, actively developing, certain you'll start but not sure where, or just beginning.
Really interesting results here. Now, I have to ask, is this what you guys were expecting to see here?
Yeah, I'm going to say so. Just beginning the journey, I will say that that's encouraging to see the audience do that. And of course, we're on the tip of the spear. Everyone talks about autonomous trucks, but no one's really talking about how we're going to implement autonomous trucks in our trucking company operations. Of course, we don't own a trucking company. We own a autonomous truck technology firm. You own the trucking company, but it's really good to see that about 60% of you are just beginning the journey, and nice to see that some feel like they're totally ready as well. That's good to see.
To be honest, this is mind blowing. This is very encouraging.
Be great that we can help in all phases.
Yes.
All right, continuing our journey then, let's take a look at Locomotion's turnkey approach to autonomy. While we are on this slide, notice the custom mirror pod on this truck. This is our patent-pending sensor suite that is installed on every Locomotion-equipped self-driving truck. Now, onto our turnkey approach. Glenn?
Thank you again, Chetan. So our commercial solution is comprised of 3 product lines supporting one mission. And that mission is to enable you to implement autonomous trucking services with precision at scale. The 3 product lines are these. 1, an AV portfolio of AV technology that transforms the truck into a safe autonomous machine. 2, the autonomous relay network, which identifies where the highest and best economic benefits can be found, both in your network and nationally. And then 3, a proprietary digital transportation system that is tuned exclusively for planning and scheduling the daily transportation activities in your autonomous relay network. So we'll dig into each one of these 3 product lines now, beginning with the foundation of Locomation's self-driving truck. Chetan.
Okay, let's take a look at that. Okay, so the first product line in our solution is a complete portfolio of AV technology designed to be scalable and adaptable to each engineered duty cycle. In fact, today's ARC systems are being engineered for 1,000-mile line haul duty segments that will produce 20 to 22 hours of utilization for 2 trucks with 1 on-duty driver. They are also engineering a system that we named a drone follower, designed for shorter haul duty cycles of about 250 miles one way or about 500 miles round trip. What this means is that when our solo driverless system is ready, you will know exactly where to deploy your autonomous freight network to produce the highest and best yield possible from every move. At the core of our development effort is an upfit kit built from the ground up for safety, reliability, and scalability. Building a prototype isn't necessarily easy for a complex problem like this, but if you are skilled in the field, it isn't very hard either, especially when the prototype will only be operating in a tightly scripted environment. We've done that too at the beginning, but now we are building Locomation's autonomous truck system to deploy at scale on an order of magnitude of thousands first, and then tens of thousands, and then hundreds of thousands. Our standard autonomy stack includes hardware redundancy heavily in sensors, actuators, and individual computing elements, and dedicated vehicle-to-vehicle radio links to achieve superhuman reaction times for convoy formation and control. When we talk about a Locomation autonomous truck, this is the kit what it makes an autonomous truck. So let's move into the meat of the implementation model. So I'm going to turn to Glenn to take it from here.
Yeah, you bet. So Locomation equips the clients that we serve to implement this autonomous trucking service in 4 brilliantly practical phases. So you've got 1 autonomous truck, and in the case of a convoy, you have 2 autonomous trucks, but the way that they're implemented is unique in Locomation situations. So Chetan, why don't you explain this autonomous relay convoy as the first deployment?
I will be delighted. So as we keep hammering on, we are obsessed with building a product that has the maximum safety and uptime characteristics, and that we can deploy as quickly as possible. Along those lines, one of the most beautiful aspects of ARC is that it is an end-to-end drop-in asset replacement solution. And here's how it works. An ARC convoy starts its journey with 2 drivers manually driving the 2 trucks when they are on the surface streets, until they get onto an ARC segment on an interstate, which is known as the middle mile. When the trucks are on the interstate and in formation, they engage the ARC system. And at that point, the leader driver remains in control of the convoy, but the follower truck goes into the self-driving mode, allowing the driver in the following truck to go off duty and rest. At predetermined intervals, the trucks swap places so both drivers can take turns being in the lead position and taking their rest. And at the end of that segment, the drivers disengage their system and take manual control of their respective trucks, drive their trucks off the highway, and do the literal last couple of miles manually. This enables us to automate the majority of the trip without having to wait to solve for more complicated autonomous urban driving scenarios. Some people believe this modified team model will be around for a very long time to come, where each driver has their own individual tractor, but function as a high-performance team in a relay model engineered from the ground up for highest yield and highest utilization. It's certainly not far-fetched moving forward that the autonomous machine will actually become the perfect driving partner for the human driver. The time will tell. By taking this approach, the clients we serve are able to optimize for both faster commercialization and a logical path to solo driverless, supported by evidence of safety. In our phase 1, 2 drivers and 2 trucks will operate in tandem as a traditional team would, with one driver driving and the other one is sleeping. In the same way, the leader driver of the convoy will drive while the follower driver engages their autonomous follower system and goes off duty, not driving, literally, resting, sleeping in the back. In phase 2, we will introduce the drone follower concept, engineered for day-round autonomous operations for no driver required in the follower vehicle. Could you imagine putting 50 of your idle trucks to work tomorrow by pairing them up with your certified autonomous truck operators? That's precisely what we are talking about in phase 2. And in phase 3, we have a solo driverless truck that is capable of operating autonomously between autonomous transit hubs, similar to intermodal and drayage moves. And phase 4 takes it to the next level, delivering autonomously from dock to dock, and with the right robot from locomotion, even door to door. Each phase of the deployments have cost savings potential that ranging from 30% from the ARC all the way to 45% of gross revenues with the dock to dock phase 4 deployments. With the applicability of each product ranging from 50% all the way up to 100% of the total freight transportation market, this is the fastest and the best mover advantage strategy.
So we have an interesting approach to some poll questions here. You have answered a couple of questions that have already been asked to you. And first, is Locomation a platooning company? Your answer here is an unequivocal no. Chetan?
Absolutely no, that is very correct. We are not a platooning company, and the fullest answer to that question is found in the answer to the next question.
So that is Locomation delivering autonomous truck technology at scale?
Yes, and we'll take a look at that answer in more detail in the following slides.
Super, let's do it.
All right. So the Autonomous Relay Network is the second product in our lineup. The first was the AV technology portfolio. So this is the second one. It's the Autonomous Relay Network, which we abbreviate as ARN. But bottom line, it's the most profitable way to begin the journey to offer autonomous trucking services. We're going to find out more on that one here. Tom, take us on that journey.
Will do, Glenn. We have created the Autonomous Relay Network, which identifies the segments. Oops, let's make sure we're on the slide. Which identifies interstate segments and the nodes which function as the relay points for the human-guided autonomous convoys or full autonomy equipment, and an integration between local and line haul activity. The interstate highway system consists of 46 individual highways, not counting bypass segments. Using data from the U.S. Department of Transportation, Locomation has identified 68 interstate segments that represent 88% of the national interstate commercial traffic flow. We designed the segments to produce the 22 hours worth of operation that our equipment can support, which gives us the utilization and efficiency required. This creates a profitability element from equipment savings. When we drill down further on a carrier-by-carrier or shipper-by-shipper basis, we are able to engineer even shorter, highly profitable relay segments that would also enable carriers to get drivers home on a regular basis, including every night if desired, and still get maximum utilization out of both the drivers and the assets every day. We also found that understanding our customer freight networks through this lens is actually highly profitable even before their deployment of the autonomous truck systems. The exercise alone can produce a 5 to 7% improvement in operating costs. Now for some more specific details about the ARC segments. More specific details in regards to Autonomous Relay Network include the following facts. The segment itself is anywhere between 450 and 600 miles in length. This allows for the segment to be planned at a day's worth of activity, either as a round-trip move from origin to destination and back, part of a relay network where it is connected to another segment to complete a 1,000-mile journey, or subdivided into smaller segments that are run multiple times per day. The freight analysis framework gives us an indication of the amount of freight expected in the segment and allows us to extrapolate the volumes by mileage range supportable by autonomy. This figure ranges between 3,000 and 20,000 units per day, depending on the segment. The example lanes represented in our grid, which are currently under development, range from 5,000 units per day for each of the segments between Dallas to and from El Paso and Dallas to and from Memphis, and 7,000 units per day between Dallas to and from Kansas City. Contact us if interested in jointly developing these lanes at explore@locomation.ai. The expected metrics we are anticipating as we plan the deployment of the autonomous equipment are 0 empty miles on the segment. All the miles operated in the segment will be loaded, including idling reduced to less than 2 hours per day, as the equipment will be operated 22 hours per day, which is also a capacity improvement at over 2.5 times compared to normal over-the-road operating models. This network approach, combined with the human-guided autonomy, yields the operating ratio 81% and 62% once we get to full autonomy. Now let's look at an example of an application of the autonomous relay network with human-guided autonomous convoying. Our example segment is between Dallas and Memphis. Based on the analysis framework, there are over 5,000 commercial tractor units operating in this lane on a daily basis. 2 loads each moving from Dallas to Memphis and vice versa creates an opportunity for optimization. Operating under an over-the-road model, the loads moved on a daily basis would require 4 drivers and 4 tractors to operate, with each driver and tractor operating 12 hours per day and resting a similar 12 hours per day, according to the Department of Transportation regulations. The operational cost for this model would be $821,000 annually, to be divided between our cost elements of driver costs, fuel costs, and other operating costs. Applying the economics model we discussed earlier, this cost can be reduced to $701,000 through the use of the ARC network and the human-guided autonomy technology. This is $120,000 savings from an operational cost perspective and improves the operating ratio from 95% to 81% on the line haul. On top of that, sustainability metrics are also quite impressive. Elimination of idling, empty miles, and fuel performance of the convoying allows us to reduce the CO2 emissions by 120 metric tons annually across the 2 tractors. This equates to 60 metric tons each.
That's good.
Glenn,
so we talked about thank you. So we talked about the AV portfolio. We talked about the autonomous relay network just now. That's an extremely valuable product line for us. The third is this digital transportation system, which is a software as a service application that evaluates the carrier's readiness for autonomy, their current operating model plans, and it optimizes the current freight flows from an autonomy perspective. It executes autonomous load plans and resources and monitors that performance of the equipment, the network, and the operating metrics. Let's take a deeper look at that, Tom.
Will do, Glenn. The digital transportation system starts by evaluating carriers' existing operating metrics, freight network, and lane balance to determine where the gaps are, what the expected value of implementing autonomy is, and where they should focus their efforts. Locomation then plans and optimizes where best to focus their energy to offer autonomous truck services to their customers. We made it easy to choose any or all of the autonomous relay segments today to lock in potential for tomorrow. And we will train our customers' organization to execute it like a turnkey operation. We identify the local and line haul activity that needs to be integrated and any changes needed in the current operating model. To help capitalize on this opportunity, Locomation executes the network and scheduling algorithms with a prescriptive transportation plan to get two loads heading in the same direction at the same time, deploying an autonomous convoy. Supply chain integrations with shippers, 3PLs, carriers, and private fleets augment the dynamic elements of our execution. The system is constantly refined by monitoring equipment performance, plan versus actual, on the algorithms and load plans, and studying the operating metrics for improvement. This novel patent-pending approach means a new way to plan and route freight for autonomy, which is not only highly profitable today, but precisely engineered for autonomous services tomorrow. Because when a freight network is engineered for autonomy, the fine-tuning exercise alone will produce higher utilization and more freight density than one can imagine. The reason we believe in bringing autonomous convoying to market as soon as possible is because it is both the safest and most profitable way to help carriers make more from their trucking operations sooner. It also increases the capacity available to shippers and improves the transit time of the shipment.
That's good. That's powerful stuff, Tom. Think of it like a franchise opportunity where our customer accesses the right products, the tools, the methods, the processes to run a high-performance autonomous truck operation. And with Locomation's autonomous freight network analysis and custom optimization services, shippers and carriers can select valuable routes for autonomous relay convoys that meet their customers' needs and maximize the efficiency of their entire freight network. We're confident this opens vast new opportunities in your current operation as well as in your new autonomy service offerings. And that just about wraps it up for us. Chetan, until we go into Q&A.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. At this point, like Glenn mentioned, we would like to take some questions from the audience. So if you haven't done so already, please do submit your questions using that Q&A box in your console. It looks like we already have some great questions, so I'll jump right in. The first question here, does all the data you are presenting have inclement weather factored into it? If so, what is the uptime and usability in inclement weather? Chetan, I'll turn this one over to you.
Yeah. Beautiful question, and this is one of the driving factors behind adopting a complete portfolio of AV products instead of having just one type of AV unit that can work in certain conditions, and if those conditions are not met, you have to fall back all the way back to manual driving today. As we, of course, progress the technology, it's not going to be ready to handle a blizzard from day one, but over time, the different parts of our technology stack, starting with the convoying and moving towards solo driverless, will be able to handle increasing levels of inclement weather. And based on the quantifiable definition of what the system can or cannot handle, our digital transportation system will determine the best mode of transportation for any given load in the system. So it will pick whether it should be carried by a solo driverless, or if the weather is not permissive for solo driverless but is permissive for convoy operations, it will dispatch it to an autonomous convoy.
And if I could add on to that with respect to the digital transportation system, one of its capabilities, because it's a real-time system, so the autonomous relay network is something that you look at and plan in a snapshot. The digital transportation implements this daily on a scheduling and planning basis. We actually have integration with sources of information that will tell us how the route in transit will be affected by things like traffic, accidents, and weather. So incorporating that into the planning and the scheduling day in and day out for that load, we're able to ensure that we get precision in how those loads are scheduled and ensure that everybody knows who's going to do what, when, where, why, how, with whom throughout the day of that schedule.
Excellent. Next question here. How would you incorporate flatbed trucks? Chetan?
Well, our second customer, PGT Trucking, they are a leading flatbed provider. We are working with them on incorporating flatbed trucks into our autonomous stack as well. There are a couple of different things to be discussed there, the way the loads are distributed on the flatbed truck, and of course the shape of the flatbed trucks. In the near term, we will be utilizing what is known as a Conestoga trailer, that is a structured tarp that comes onto the flatbeds that makes the flatbeds look like a box trailer. That will be the earliest implementation of our technology with flatbeds, but over time, as our technology is further validated, we will be able to handle any arbitrary flatbed load as well.
Excellent. Next question. So is this legally the same as a team driving truck with hours of service? Glenn?
Yeah, I'll take that one and then hand it off briefly to Tom as well, because he's factored in the hours of service in the calculations in each one of these autonomous relay networks. But the short answer is yes. This essentially is taking two drivers in one truck in a normal team operation today and giving each driver their own truck. So you actually double up on the amount of capacity that you can haul, and you still get to run like a team operator. So the lead driver is on duty driving while the follower driver is off duty not driving. And then when they swap, the hours are accrue to the driver who's in the lead position, who's on duty driving, and the driver who's in the follower vehicle goes off duty just the way they do today. Tom, anything to add on that in terms of the planning for that?
Just a couple things, Glenn. We're also planning for some exceptions to incorporate what's known as split rest breaks. So we can also incorporate the lead driver's rest break with the follower driver's rest break, so that that's coordinated as well, and still maintain the current hour of service rules.
Great. My next question here. How many trucks can be added to the convoy? Chetan, I'll let you take this one.
Excellent question. We believe there is a clear use case for 3-truck convoys in the future. Obviously, we are very much interested in getting to the market as quickly as possible. That's why we are starting with 2-truck convoys. We see a clear path to expanding into 3 trucks. But anything beyond 3 trucks, there are some logistics challenges in scheduling and arranging the loads for longer road trains. There are social aspects that longer road trains present when they are on the road. It becomes very annoying and very difficult to navigate around them for the rest of the traffic. Some of the infrastructure elements in the country, like some bridges, are not rated for the weight and the vibration characteristics of very long convoys. So in some states, you actually see the number of trucks in the convoys are legally limited to 3. And from all practical purposes, we really see very marginal value in going for arbitrarily long convoys anyways. But yeah, 3-truck convoys we will see.
Great. My next question here. Do these autonomous trucks require a driver for emergency interference? And secondly, how do you keep drivers engaged or alert? Glenn, I'll let you take this one first.
Yeah, you bet. So we keep the drivers engaged, and primarily we're talking to the lead driver through a series of interactions, watching the eyes, and a number of different methods for determining their engagement in the full driving process. It's really key, obviously, for the lead driver. Chetan, I don't know if you've got anything to add to that.
Yeah, that's a problem. The human-machine interaction, if you recall, I mentioned in my introduction at the beginning, me and our team have spent literally years and years working on that very problem. How do we get autonomous driving and humans to cooperate, and how do we keep humans engaged in the process? Obviously, you need to alleviate the cognitive load of driving as much as possible, but give them frequent enough sensible cues to keep the drivers engaged. So that's one of the things that our team is uniquely experienced in. And for the first part of the question, the definition of level 4 autonomous driving means that there is no requirement for a human driver to wait and stand by in order to take over or intervene if anything happens. So the follower truck, when it's in the autonomous mode, is going to be able to handle anything and everything that can happen in its universe. And that's an important emphasis. That's the reason why we are putting that follower as a follower behind the human leader in the first place. But whatever can happen to the follower will be able to achieve minimum risk condition and come to a safe stop all by itself without requiring any human input.
Wonderful. Next question here. Will your AV stack work with electric trucks as well? Chetan?
Absolutely, yes. Our core technology is agnostic of the propulsion method underneath. In fact, we are exploring some opportunities to demonstrate the capabilities of our autonomous stack on alternate fuel vehicles, be it fuel cells, hydrogen, or electric vehicles. And hopefully in the next months and a couple of quarters, we'll be able to share more tangible results from those initiatives. But absolutely, yes, we are looking forward to oversee the transition of transportation, not just autonomous transportation, but also a green net zero transportation through electric fuel cell trucks.
Excellent. Next question here. While in transit, how will the rear truck handle a car pulling between both trucks, and or if there is some kind of wreck ahead? Chetan, I'll let you take this one as well.
I'll start with the second part. The wreck ahead is basically the follower truck follows the footsteps of the leader truck. And we trust the judgment capabilities of the expert human driver in the lead truck to identify any kind of road debris or any kind of road condition that the convoy should react to. And all the follower truck needs to do is to flawlessly follow the leader. And again, I mentioned flawlessly at the beginning of the webinar. That is the second part. The first part is there are multiple things that we are doing there. First of all, at commercial deployment, these trucks will follow each other at highway speeds, like 65, 70 miles an hour speeds, at less than half a second following gap, which in turn will mean 10 to 15 meters of distance. So being able to pull into two semi-trucks at that 10-meter distance at highway speeds is a rare attempt. Not impossible, but we are making it as rare as possible. The second thing is most of these pull-ins are very temporary. Either a vehicle comes from the left lane, cuts in, goes to the right to take an exit, or merges from the right, cuts in, and gets to the left lane. As long as it is a temporary event, we don't need to do anything specifically. The follower is able to keep tracking the leader and keep following the leader. And if the intruder, for whatever reason, decides to stay in between two trucks, since the follower is level 4 and is able to make its own decisions, and this particular scenario is in its what if scenario library, it will be able to detect and react and give way to the intruder.
Great. My next question here. Will you please describe the physical features of your relay network and how those facilities operate? Tom, I'll let you take this one.
Sure, thanks. The initial attributes of it kind of support the elements of our autonomous relay convoy. So it can actually operate out of the terminal facility of the carrier we're supporting, based on the fact that as the drivers, both the leader and the follower, get close to the ultimate destination or origin, they can separate and operate as they do today as over-the-road drivers. So in its simplest terms, we can operate out of terminals, we can operate out of way stations, we can operate out of rest areas, and we can operate out of truck stops.
Excellent. Looks like we have time for about one more question. We have David McLaughlin here, a proud PGT former employee and alumni. Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. David's question is, do you have a network of repair facilities and distribution that can handle the repair needs of the locomotion technology? Tom, I'll let you take this one.
Well, we actually are working with some suppliers, and I'll let Glenn and Chetan weigh in on that. But we actually have a service partner across the United States.
Yeah, I'll take that. We have a strategic partnership with Rush Enterprises. They are both our upfit post-delivery installation partner, as well as they will provide warranty, maintenance, and repair services through over 800 shops that they have in the country. So yes, we are keeping up with the industry experts.
Excellent. We had many more wonderful questions. Thank you all to the audience for submitting those. Our friends at Locomation will be happy to follow up with you online for further addressing of those questions. That is all the time that we have for today. We really appreciate all of you for joining us to listen in to this presentation. Of course, to Locomation for partnering with us today. And Chetan, Tom, and Glenn, thank you all for sharing your insights with us. As I mentioned previously, we'll be sending a link to the recording of this webinar tomorrow via the email that you used to register. We hope you'll join us again next time for another FreightWaves webinar. Thanks, everyone.
It was a distinct pleasure.